Well, welcome to First Tuesdays, everyone. I'm Brianna Hoffman, and I'm the training coordinator and consultant here at the Washington State Library. And I'm joined this morning by Washington State Community Outreach Librarian Sarah Pate, who will be helping us with tech support. Please feel free to chat directly with Sarah if you're having any tech issues. First Tuesdays is brought to you by the Washington State Library, which is part of the Office of Secretary of State. Our funder is the Institute of Museum and Library Services through the Library Services and Technology Act, or LSTA. As a requirement of our funding, we ask that you take a short 4-question survey that will be included in a follow-up email after the presentation. It's important information that we include in our annual report to continue our funding for trainings such as today's. We value your feedback and thank you in advance for your time in completing the survey. All right. Well, now I'm going to introduce our presenter this morning. Joyce Abbott is the Workforce Development Librarian here at the Washington State Library, and I am excited to introduce her and her session, Compassionate Computer Help. Take it away, Joyce.
Good morning. Hi, I'm Joyce Abbott. I'm your Workforce Development Librarian at the Washington State Library. What that means is I'm here to support you with resources, funding, research, and tools to serve adults of all ages, especially with job help, with lifelong learning, and with digital skills. I promise I am actually qualified to talk about this because for 13 years prior to working in a cubicle in Tumwater, I have been 100% a public librarian, and computer help is my jam. I did adapt this training from Pittsburgh Library slides, which were super duper cat themed. And I am not a cat person, I'm a dog person, but I didn't want to do a binary thing. So we're going with cryptids. Have fun naming them all as they show up. And I may even ask you, because I found some cryptids I couldn't name. So maybe you guys know. All right, I'd like to start with a quick story. My first real librarian job was in 2010 at the Fresh Start Women's Resource Center in downtown Phoenix. One of our regulars called me over to a PC and asked for some help typing her information into a Word document and attaching it to an email. I go over to take a look at what is essentially the jankiest document I've ever seen in my life. And she said that she had won the Coca-Cola lottery and she wanted help attaching this document to an email and replying to them with all of her sensitive, personally identifiable information. I asked her if she had entered a lottery, and she said she had not. I pointed out how the logo was kind of like stretched out, and I think Coca-Cola's got like really, really good people doing their branding and stuff. I even told her I was going to check the Coca-Cola website. I did. There was no mention of a lottery. So I went back and I said, I think this is a scam, and I don't think it's a good idea to send these people your information. And she replied back, yeah, but I really need the money. Can you relate? Do you have interactions like this at the PCs when you're helping the public? I bet some of you can. Can I get a thumbs up? Can I get a react if anybody has had a situation like this before come up? Yep, I see some. Yes, thank you. All right, I know we're not alone. This happens a lot. Just to give you a heads up, so that was 2010. This screenshot I've got here is from 2022. And as of right now, Coca-Cola has a warning in their FAQs on their website that they do not have a lottery. Because in 2025, this scam is still scamming, if you can believe it. Sasquatch is in anguish. This is complete and total anguish. So today, we're going to hopefully understand the goals and the scope of digital skills support and how you can best support your customers. We're going to understand together how to offer digital skills service just within the context of what public library service is. And together, we're going to establish some guidance on reasonable boundaries when assisting patrons. We're going to do that together. But first, how did we get here? 7% of US adults don't use the internet. And the factors that correlate to the strongest to internet adoption and use are, of course, age, education, and income. This map, this is one of many that shows the Digital Divide Index in Washington. That's a rating based on internet availability, cost, and the demographics of households in the state. And if you take a look, it says there's a low digital divide index anywhere that there's light green. This is where apparently people are super connected and get what they need. And then, the rest of the state is in, medium or high level of digital divide. And I don't know about you, but no matter where you work, but even if you work in this light green area where it's low, I'm pretty sure you're still having interactions with people who do not have access to the tools or the skills that they need in order to thrive, and they've been left behind. Yep. But you guys are the ones who are actually picking up that slack, because in Washington State, there are over 5,000 public PCs. Last year, they had almost 3 million sessions. And your Wi-Fi, guys, the parking lot Wi-Fi, the in-building Wi-Fi, last year, you guys had nearly 10 million library Wi-Fi sessions that people used their own devices for. So yeah, you guys are picking up this slack. You guys are bridging the digital divide in the public library, where anyone can walk in and ask for help. Because libraries have always served everyone, but over COVID, we all had to step up our game just to get a lot of community members up to speed on technology, just so that they could get their kids back into school and they could navigate services. It was a lot, and I think it obviously raised the consciousness of how important it is. Otherwise, the federal government wouldn't be giving out billions of dollars in BEAD funding. So there's also a sort of misconception that the youth are going to save us, that they don't necessarily need to be taught the same way that older adults do. This is from Pew Research Teens and Internet Device Access Fact Sheet from 2024. And we do kind of take for granted that younger people are growing up around it, so that we assume that they're just going to pick it up as they go. But that's not necessarily true unless someone intentionally chooses to do some instruction by learning in school, or by having the devices at home and practicing at home. Because when you look at the teen internet use, the majority of them are using smartphones regardless of income, which is great to know. But younger teens and teens from households with low income, if they're not exposed to having that device and using it and troubleshooting it and learning the ins and outs and getting comfortable with it, they're not necessarily learning it. And that is going to be an equity issue, especially when they get into the workplace and someone asks them to save it to the share drive, but they've never had the experience of working on a desktop that's networked, for example. So this is the definition of digital equity from the National Digital Inclusion Alliance. I'm just going to read it out real quick. Digital equity is a condition in which all individuals and communities have the information technology capacity needed for full participation in our society, democracy, and economy. Digital equity is necessary for civic and cultural participation, employment, lifelong learning, and access to essential services. But you already know that. That's what you do every day. I'm also going to read off the definition of digital navigators that the NDIA has. Digital navigators are trusted guides who assist community members with ongoing individualized support for accessing affordable and appropriate connectivity, devices, and digital skills. Navigators can be volunteers, cross-trained existing staff, or dedicated new hires who offer guidance on connectivity, devices, and digital skills. They're typically at trusted community-based organizations. Digital navigators are familiar with their community's resources that relate to digital equity, and they help residents learn to use critical online services. They recommend resources and check back with the client over time to ensure that they're able to reach their goals. Digital navigators support both urgent needs and long-term goals. Most digital navigators provide general support, and some offer specialized support for specific topics such as healthcare, and for specific populations, including people with disabilities, returning citizens, higher education students, and caregivers to K-12 students. So does that sound pretty familiar? Give me a thumbs up if that sounds like exactly what you already do. Yeah, yeah. You're already doing it, and you have been since before there was this term, digital navigator. So digital skills help ranges from doing fully for someone all the way to teaching someone to do confidently for themselves. And library services fit somewhere in the middle there. We're not doing dedicated case management like a social worker would, or like a digital navigator who's assigned to someone through like an ongoing program. Most of what we do is on demand, it's in the moment. So when we help people with tech in the library, we've got to set some boundaries, so we can have some professional ethics and also, not over stress ourselves. We have to work within our capacity. I got a quick poll here. I want to ask, do you think you're closer to teaching, or are you somewhere in the middle? Do we have that poll go out? Have we been able to share the poll?
I am working on it
Oh,
here.
okay, sorry.
Are we seeing it?
Not yet.
Oh, here we go. There we go. Try that.
Yay!
Yay.
I love watching the poll in real time. It's like a race. Like which one's gonna win? All right, got a couple. Leave it open for like 10 more seconds. Waiting on a couple people. All right, I'm gonna go ahead and end poll. Can we share these results? It looks like, yeah, almost all of us are in the middle. We've got some people who are just doing quick troubleshooting, and we've got some people who do have a lot of capacity to take time for one-on-ones. But yeah, the majority of us are somewhere in the middle trying to figure out, where those boundaries are and where they belong in our community, because every community is different. All right. All right, so this might seem, obviously we all understand boundaries and why we're setting them, but it bears repeating that we set boundaries for the service so we have clear expectations of what's expected of us, and our patrons also have clear expectations of what services they can choose to receive. Because for example, let's say if a staff member acquiesces and you know what, yes, Rhonda, I will go ahead and fill out your tax form for you online on this time. Rhonda's going to come back next year and she's going to be pretty irked when she finds out that you're ethically bound not to fill out her tax forms. She might even decide that she's only going to deal with Ben because Ben was the person who's nice and he did her taxes last year, and everybody else is terrible. I'm not saying this happened, but it happens a lot. Um, but it's important to remember that when we're filling out things for people, even if we're just helping them get through something, if for example, if you were to say click submit on their job application or on their form, they haven't read the terms and conditions, but nor have they had the opportunity to exercise their legal right not to read the terms and conditions before they agree to something. But either way, they have the right to be autonomous in their decision. And, or maybe you're setting a boundary with a patron because you need to refer them to a specific staff member to help them because, with more in-depth need. There's a lot of reasons why you would set a boundary and say, I'm sorry, I can't help you with exactly what you're asking for in the present moment. It's not necessarily bad service. You can discern who is the best person to help and what you can offer. One of the easiest ways to manage expectations from the start is to post a menu of services if you can. These are based on career help, not PC help, but it'd be helpful to have on, posted by the desk or maybe on a half sheet. How long will staff stay and help someone? Can you book a one-on-one appointment? How long is that one-on-one appointment? What kind of IT questions can you bring to that one-on-one appointment? I've worked in libraries where someone will legit ask you to type for them like multiple times a day. And I look back and wish that we'd had a menu of services posted, not just so that people knew ahead of time all the things that we would be happy to help them with, but also so we could put a little disclaimer, a little asterisk at the bottom in a really friendly way that just says up front, I'm so sorry, staff cannot type up things for you, and we cannot fill out forms for you, but we will be happy to help you and empower you and work with you and help you. That would just be a nice way to sort of set the table and let people know ahead of time. It's not personal that I'm not going to do your taxes. It's not personal I'm not going to type up your resume for you. It's something we don't do for anyone. So sometimes people come to the library and they are working with urgency. Maybe it's because of a deadline, or because there's other stresses that make their need emotionally urgent. And if you in that moment can't provide them with what they want, either because of your capacity or the professional boundaries of your library, then a referral is the next option for care, to care for these people. And you might be referring to your backup person, you might be referring them to a one-on-one and assisting them with, how they schedule. But referring someone doesn't mean that you're rejecting them from library services. And it might feel that way sometimes. That might feel that way to the patron even. They might even tell you all the reasons why you're not meeting that need will snowball and ruin lots of other things for them. I don't know if anyone's ever had that discussion. That's a great one. But you can refer to community resources and still let the patron know that they're welcome in the library. We value their presence here. We want them to feel like this is their shared space. But it's about framing them as being supported by a whole community of providers, not as someone whose need is too great for the library services. Sometimes if there's reluctance to go elsewhere, hey, I'm already here, why can't you do this? The fact that you're not doing this is going to cause issues. One thing that I've found can be sort of helpful in redirecting the patron would be to ask, okay, so what would happen if you did have the thing that you're asking for? What if you did have access to this? And then the patron will start filling in the blanks on, okay, well, it will have this positive impact. It will have this positive snowball effect. These are all the things that will be going right for me if I get this service. And if they're actually telling you all of the benefits that getting that kind of service would give them, sometimes they're more likely to take the referral, even if it means that they will have to go to a secondary location or contact another person. It's worked in the past, and I thought I'd put it out there, and I hope that we will have time at the end for y'all to share your best practices too. So do you feel confident answering these questions? How are these standards going to get set and communicated? Patrons often want to know why we're going to do one thing but not another, and it can be really helpful to point them to a public declaration of the library's missions, goals, or capabilities. Because if someone didn't get the service that they want, you can explain where that judgment call comes from and why, to illustrate that it's not personal. It's not about me not wanting to help you. This is the kinds of services that we can provide based on our guiding principles, based on what the library is capable of in this community. And it also helps sometimes give the patron an idea of what kind of culture you're trying to create in your library space, and help them understand that you're trying to build an inclusive space where everyone's welcome. I beg you, please talk to each other about everything that happens at the PCs, the mundane stuff, the hard stuff, the weird stuff. You never know what people are going to ask for. You never know what people are going to assume about using the PCs of the library. And sharing all that stuff, sharing what was the ask, sharing why you could not, do that for someone and what you offered instead. All of that is just training for your coworkers on what worked, what didn't work, and why. What's even better is if you have someone who has the time to maybe even type up some of these best practices, like in the grid here, it could be really useful in training people. And also just as a quick reference, hey, I don't do this, but here's why not, and here's what I can offer you instead. It's a really great cheat sheet. And it should be specific to your library, because every library is going to have different boundaries based on the culture in their community. All right, so how do we implement some standards for service? It is through clear communication and teamwork. If we can get a menu of services, what are staff going to assist with? Will you type out for a patron, or will you fill out a form? Will you assist for a period of time before you offer a one-on-one appointment? Do you have a system of backup? It can be helpful sometimes to put out a sign-up sheet. It just depends on kind of the vibe at the PCs, how many people use them, how large the space is. But it could let multiple waiting patrons know where they are and who will help them. It can also help sometimes to discern who can be helped in a few seconds, who can be helped in a couple minutes, and who might need direct attention to to assist them further. Know who and how to hand off. So when you're not sure how to help, know who your backups are and know if you are someone's backup and when you're expected to back them up, how they're going to call you for help. If you're doing shift change at the PC area, it's really helpful to do an informed handoff if you've already been working with a patron. Let them know who will be taking care of them after you leave and brief your teammate. Hey, I'm working with Rhonda. She's working on her taxes. She's super frustrated. We've done this, this, and this. She's this point in the process, just to set everyone up for success. If you are referring to library services, just have your library services available. Have your, your half sheets, your one sheets, your newsletters. Not all requests need to be met immediately. You can feel it out with the patron. You can also have your go-to referrals, your community referrals available on a half sheet or on a QR code. But I would really recommend developing a culture of referral to community resources because referrals provide more resources. They promote confidence in the patron to navigate those services. They feel comfortable coming to the library, but maybe they don't feel comfortable going to other locations yet. You connecting them with other services might help them feel empowered in navigating services elsewhere. And if you ever have the opportunity to have those referral partners regularly in the library space, like setting up a table or doing programs, that can really, having them in regularly in the library space helps patrons to get familiar with them too and build trust. And, I didn't really know where else to put this because it seems like it's best practice, but I know how frustrating it is when you're trying to help someone and you just can't get past something on a touch screen. But my goodness, I implore you to please avoid using the patron's device whenever possible. I don't know if you've ever had the joy of having a really great interaction with someone and working with them for a great 25 minutes, and maybe they've got mild dementia and, everything's going great until they think that you're reading their email. And you just don't deserve that when you're trying to do something helpful. And I just implore you not to put yourself in that position because it's not fair to you. And just a reminder that yes, you are doing trauma-informed care. Because let's say if you're not feeling confident using a computer, but we live in a society that references the internet, allows the internet to drive our culture change, and requires engagement with it in order to take care of like basic life needs, that's going to be a traumatic experience because poverty is traumatic. And you don't need to know someone's personal history to assume that trauma-informed care is appropriate when you assist with anything on the PCs or with tech. I am going to break for another story. This is at the same job in 2010. Someone asked me to help them sign into their email account. And I was having literally the worst day. My boss had been like dramatically fired that morning, and I was just trying to get through the day, and I was on autopilot. And she sat down, she said, okay, can you help me sign into my Hotmail? And I started the same instructions that I talk people through every day, like, okay, please use the left-hand side of the mouse, double click on the blue E on the desktop. Okay, now please type into the space at the top, hotmail.com, and click the enter button on the keyboard. And oh my God, my tone was so awful. My tone was so awful. I was so clearly phoning it in and not wanting to be there. And that she just stopped. She got up and she looked at me like with so much hurt and she left. And I don't know if she ever came back. And I think about her a lot. So we're going to work through a few examples here. And what I'm going to need help understanding is the right thing to do in each case. And as you help me, please keep these 5 principles in mind. We're going to think about safety. Psychological safety is my tone, my approach, my attentiveness. Physical safety, that's my, how much personal space I'm allowing and what kind of posture I'm approaching with. Trustworthiness, am I clear about what I can offer? Do they trust the institution of the library? Do I know that or not? Have I reminded them, please not to share any personally identifiable or sensitive information? Am I giving them a choice? Everyone always has a choice, not only in what services they choose to seek out and receive, but also the services they choose not to engage with. Just because you might know that if this person learns this skill and does this thing, then they will absolutely meet their goal. But they also can choose not to take that advice, and that's okay. Is there a collaboration? Are we sharing power? Am I letting them steamroll me? Or am I telling them what they need more than I'm asking them what they need? Guilty of both. And lastly, empowerment. What words or actions can I bring to the interaction that are going to empower the patron to go outside their comfort zone. All right, y'all ready? I brought the wrong glasses today, and I have to get so close just to read the questions on this job application. And then I get to this personality test at the end, and now twice, I've gotten kicked out and had to start all over again. What is wrong with your machine? Can you please just stay here with me and get this thing submitted? This is my third time getting through it, and I get kicked out right before the last page. Could you please just sit with me and help me get this submitted right now? What do we do? What do you do? We got a poll going. All right. Got about 10 more answers we're waiting on. If you have not voted, please vote. Going to give it about 10 more seconds. All right, let's take a look. Yeah, so it looks like we do have one person who's going to offer to get some reader glasses from the Lost and Found. About 30% of us want to offer to adjust the size, the resolution for the screen for easier reading. Most of us are going to ask some more clarifying questions, and a lot of us are going to offer to sit down with the patron for 5 minutes and see if you can just get them through the process. And none of those answers are necessarily wrong. They all depend on your library. I would probably not recommend offering them readers just because those readers do not belong to them. But all of the other options here are great. You know, we can absolutely start out by saying, well, I'd be happy to help you adjust the size of the screen so that it's easier to read. We can ask some clarifying questions. Maybe there's, you know, hang on a second, let me stop sharing here. All right. Yeah, we can offer to enlarge the screen. We can look at the instructions. Maybe they're getting timed out. Maybe there's something else going on. You know, are we, you know, how are we going to assess safety? You know, what's our body posture and tone? Can we give choices? Hey, I can assist you for this long. I'm going to assist you for about 5 minutes. And, you know, then after that, I'll have to refer you to someone for a one-on-one if needed. Or maybe, you know, can we collaborate? Can I enlarge the screen for you so you can read the instructions better? Or can I walk you through this page and then maybe you take the next page and let me know how it goes? Also, empathizing is really important. It's rough. Every application is different. Everyone has different rules and expectations and instructions, and nobody's born how to know all of this. Let's just learn how this application works together before you try again. There's a lot of ways that you can find space for empowerment here. Okay, this is the worst slide I've ever made in my life, and I made it just so that I could share with you the worst photo I've ever seen. Right here. We do not treat people like furniture. And I saw that and I was like, why are you leaning on a human being? Why are you doing that? You took that picture and then you actually put it into Canva. Anyway, so there is a power dynamic with tech help. They're requesting help and your role is to help. And I've found people can see this dynamic very differently, usually in a couple of different ways. There's sometimes the customer and then service person dynamic. Have you ever had anyone snap at you at the PCs? Have you ever had that? Thumbs up if you have. That's my favorite. That's absolutely my favorite. Yep. So sometimes, oh my gosh, there's so many thumbs. Okay. Yes, we've untapped something that happens a lot. So sometimes that doesn't feel good, right? Sometimes, you know, you're the service person and they are requesting that service. Sometimes there's a teacher-student dynamic and they might feel vulnerable and they're looking to you to assist them. And that teacher-student dynamic is one where you have the power and they are requesting help. And that might be a great interaction depending on how they actually feel about this student teacher dynamic. They might really feel like they're the student, you're the teacher, but what if they hated school and they had a bad experience? So that's just something to keep in mind, that different people have different expectations, and you often don't know sometimes, right, when you're at the beginning of the interaction, where they're seeing that interaction coming from. If they're seeing you as the service person that needs to hop to, or if they're seeing you as the teacher that needs to be gentle with them and care for them and their needs. So body posture, for example, and mannerisms, they can all be personal or cultural. So for example, some people do not do eye contact out of respect. And for example, another example, some people will touch you all the time. And it's just, that's also a sign of respect and familiarity. But whenever time and space allow, I implore you, pull up a chair and work side by side as equals, rather than feeling like you have to squat down and have them above you, or if you're leaning down and sort of lording over people. uh, it, it's always best, if you can at all, to just be a couple of equals side by side if there's enough room. I know that sometimes it can be kind of crowded at the PCs. I don't know if you've ever had someone, if you're trying to like point at the screen and help them and have this, sometimes their face will get like right next to you because they also want to see. And so if I'm ever crowded by someone, my favorite phrase is, "Hey, can we switch places so that I can get more direct access to blank?" And just the option of sort of, we're both going to move our bodies a little bit, kind of helps you to sort of reclaim some personal space sometimes. It's just a tip. I'd love to hear your more tips from the group in chat, if at all possible. Actually, yeah, let me check. Is there anyone in chat that wants to share some of those good go-to phrases? I haven't looked in chat in a second. I like to ask if I can drive for a minute. I love that. Yeah. Yeah. And it's just for a minute. It's just for a minute. It's just to like, I'm going to take over for just a second, but then I'm going to give it right back to you. Anyone else have a really good go-to phrase that they really like? Yeah. Step when you've got a privacy screen, and that can be really difficult because then there's only really one angle that you can see the screen from. So yeah, sometimes there has to be some logistics of like, okay, we're going to both look together, or maybe I'm going to turn the screen, look for a second, and then turn it back to you. There can be, yeah, there can be some logistical issues. All right, we got another one. All right. Jeff is a beloved patron at your location. He asks for help printing photos of his grandchildren from Facebook. When you remind him that you helped him do the same thing yesterday, he insists he is just very bad at computers and he will need a lot of assistance. He's been a regular patron for 35 years. You don't understand. People love Jeff. Jeff is an institution in this community. And only in the last 2 has he started to use Facebook, but he needs assistance of some kind each time. What do we do? Send him out a poll. Keep it open for another 20 seconds. Let everyone get a chance to vote. I love how everyone's being so kind to Jeff. No one's telling Jeff this is the last time. Yay! All right, I'm going to go ahead and end the poll now and share these results. All right, nobody's going to tell Jeff this is the last time. You guys are the best. All right, almost everyone decided let's offer to help him and suggest that he writes down the steps so he has instructions for next time. We've got a couple of fantastic people who are going to help Jeff for as long as he needs because they've got the capacity to do that at their location. And it looks like there's a few of us who are going to refer him to the senior center across town where there's a buddy program where he can get that dedicated time that he really wants. And none of these are wrong answers. These are all just options. They might be, you might try all three of these options. All three of these options might be the right thing. Oh, we've got in this poll. Okay, Jake says in this poll, I exactly did this with a patron. He needed to copy pictures from his phone to his thumb drive. Each librarian sat down and helped him individually. I logged into the computer next to him and typed up the steps for the patron and printed him 4 copies of the process so he can always have them handy. Yay! And yes, Alex, you're correct. The actual answer is a combination of some of these. Yeah, we run into a lot of Jeffs who are absolutely convinced they're bad at computers, and that gets in their way more than anything. Yeah. You guys are so good. You know that it's not just one. You got to pick more than one, and you got to feel it out, and it's going to be different no matter where you are, because yeah, for 2 of you, you're in an environment where yes, you can help Jeff for as long as he needs. And not everyone is in that environment, so they've got to pick up a different set of tools. All right. Okay, this is the last one. A patron brought in their laptop. It was a gift from their sister. They're not used to it and they feel uncomfortable navigating this newer operating system. They also keep getting logged into their sister's accounts when they want, and they want to clean out the laptop and make it their own. But they need to do it today because they're preparing for job interview and they want to research online. How can you help? Last poll. How are you going to help her? Alan has a great line here. I tell them they can practice all they want. They can't break our computers and we're always nearby to help them out of a jam. I love that. It's really great to tell people like, you can't break this. Our IT people have set this up so that you can't break it. Really, it's okay. I love that. All right, we're going to give about 15 more seconds on this poll. And again, I love that y'all are just the most tactful, caring people. Thank you. Nobody has said that they would ask the patron, is this really your sister's laptop? All right, I'm going to go ahead and end the poll and share out the results. All right. So we had a couple of people, we had 3 people who said they would offer to show the patron how to do a factory reset on the laptop, because that's something that is within the scope of what they can do in their library. Leadership doesn't have a problem with that. Awesome. That can be within the scope of services. I can also see libraries where they would say, no, we do not want you, changing anything on that patron's laptop if they're not very confident that they can do it themselves. It really depends on your administration. Most of us would show the patron how to clear the browser settings to avoid that autofill. And the majority of us would offer them the public PCs to use for their job interview preparation, because yes, you all picked up on the fact that the urgency here is the need to be at a computer. And if they are here where we have computers, you can help them with that right now. Yeah. Yeah, it is very tempting to pick the first option for factory reset. And there might be libraries where that is absolutely an option. But there are libraries where that would absolutely not be an option. Yeah. Good point, Maureen. Yeah, we don't know much about that laptop. All right, I'm going to go ahead and stop sharing here. And we're going to wrap up. So I don't like the term dead end, but sometimes the solution that someone needs or wants is simply beyond the capacity and scope of what the public library does. And, sometimes maybe someone doesn't want a referral, or maybe the interaction is at a standstill because their behavior is making people feel unsafe. But it's just important to know that even the best referral to a service or solution, it might not be welcomed in the moment, but that doesn't mean that it's a bad referral. Just because it's not welcomed in the moment doesn't mean that it isn't the right thing to do. And I also ask, please, please, please take the time to debrief after a challenging interaction. If you can't do it directly afterwards, at least do it with someone before you have to be back at computer help, because this is emotional labor for you. And having rough interactions over and over again without the support of your teammates is not healthy. And I want to be very clear, you don't want to traumatize yourself, because this is emotional work, and it takes a toll. And it's wonderful that we do it, and it's very much needed, but it's also really important to remember that it's hard work. So you have to take care of yourself as much as you're taking care of that patron, so that you can be fresh for the next one. Yeah, please discuss with your team, when is it appropriate to pause and make a referral? Who are our key community supports? What other resources can you draw on? And, please have just a plan to debrief. Have a culture of debriefing and talking about it. This is not a service where they say jump and you say how high. You actually get to take a breath and pause and better understand the situation before you offer assistance. You have to understand what's the best outcome for you and what's the best outcome for the patron. And that's all I have, but I would love to open it up for some questions.
Joyce, there's a question in chat that relates directly to this. What are some good talking points for an impasse?
I think it would depend entirely on the circumstances. So if someone is, can you give an example maybe? And we can workshop it together? Because there's a lot of different kinds of impasse. Sometimes there's someone who just says, I'm not going to do this, and the fact that you won't do it for me is poor service, and I am going to melt down. That sometimes happens. And that's a very different thing than someone who says, I really need someone to really help me with this resume, and I'm not good at typing, and I need 3 hours with a human being. And that might be, when you can say, well, I can offer this kind of one-on-one, but it's only an hour, or I can offer you a referral to WorkSource where they actually will work with you. It's just depends on what the situation is, if that makes sense. That's why I'm so about referrals, because the more tools you have in your pocket, the more options you have when there is an impasse. Ellen, did that in any way answer your question? Okay.
There are a few questions in the Q&A. The first one from Jake. Do you have any boilerplate or templates or a set of exemplars for a menu of services and boundaries of services available to kickstart the process at our libraries?
I don't, but I'd be happy to make one. If that's requested, I'm happy to make some examples.
We got a heart on that one.
All right.
Okay, and we've got kind of a multi-parter from Amy. Can you talk a little bit more about trauma-informed approaches helping patrons who are experiencing mental illness and what they're asking for is not possible or not in our reality, etc., or patrons that are under the influence and especially connected to paranoia, delusions connected to the computer? That is a complicated one.
Yes, it is, but I feel you, because that's going to come up. I once had, oh yeah, this was at the same job in 2010. I had someone who they were at the center because they were going through an incredible trauma in their life. And all of our desktop PCs they were actually on Wi-Fi. So there was a little just a teeny tiny little, they were really old, but they just had like a teeny tiny little antenna stuck into the back of them. And this patron came to me at closing, and she opened up her purse and she pulled one of them out, and she said, I think this was on the back of my computer, and I think someone is someone's getting into these computers and there's a problem. And she was very secretively telling me, I think someone is spying on the people that come here. And I had to very gently explain what the device did, why it was there, why we'd want to keep it on the computer. And I went into the discussion of, okay, all of these computers have something called deep freeze on them, which means that when you do things on the computer, and you explain what a thin client is and deep freeze and how when they end their session, there's nothing left of what they did on the computer. Sometimes that works, sometimes it doesn't. But in the instances in which it doesn't work, you're not really having a discussion about PC help at that point. You're having a discussion about um, managing expectations for how we operate in the library space at that point. You just want to make sure that that person, if they can't get exactly what they're asking for, would they take a referral? If they will or won't take a referral, what can you offer them in the library space today that would be soothing to them, that would meet their needs? Um, but yeah, when you're not operating in the same reality as a patron, then the issue becomes less about the actual thing you're trying to assist them with, which you know how to do, but it becomes more about how can we make sure that this person feels safe in this space, so that nothing escalates, if that makes sense.
Hey, we've got a good question in the Q&A from Melissa. What's the best response for staff who have time but don't recognize the ramifications of doing the work for patrons? Example, doing a Zillow search for a home buyer, filling out forms for patrons, etc. They see creating boundaries as poor service.
Well, when someone thinks that creating boundaries is poor service, it might be because they haven't had some natural consequences of providing service that goes beyond what we should ethically be doing. So if everything's worked out so far, of course, why wouldn't I do this thing for this patron because it's worked out every other time? And I understand that it's also really great when someone needs something and then you give them exactly what they need. It feels so good. It feels so good to have pleased that person. But I think that's honestly a larger conversation with someone about why are you why is it so important to do for someone rather than to empower them to be able to do for themselves? That takes the conversation into sort of a personal place, but there's the reason why we have professional boundaries, because we want to be able to give people consistent service. And another talking point for them might be not everyone is going to do that for professional reasons, and to protect themselves. And so if you do that, what you're doing is giving people an inconsistent experience. It's going to result in them being really angry. Again, if I do Rhonda's taxes, there's a really good chance Rhonda's only going to want to talk to me, and Rhonda might not be great to the other people in the library either.
And we have time for maybe the couple more that are here. There is one in the chat that I'm going to read out loud that you may have some answers to, but I think Alan's asking for folks in the chat to respond as well. Does anyone have any recent post-pandemic computer instruction success stories? I'm mildly considering bringing some kind of instruction back, but I'm never going to teach Excel again. Can't say I blame you, Alan. If I can help it, I also presume that one-on-one tech help might be a better model. I've done this before, and that presents its own issues with boundary setting. So I don't know if you have any examples that you could point him towards. Sarah put one in chat from Timberland. And if there's anyone else in the chat that might have some examples for Alan.
Yeah, absolutely. I hope there's a lot of ideas that get put in chat for you, sir. I would imagine there's a lot of really good ones. I have not tried to do computer classes after the pandemic, so I'm going to rely on the hive mind to share their success stories.
And then we've got a good question in the Q&A. I think this will probably be our last one. Any advice for noise needs in the computer area? Example, teens are gaming and someone else thinks they're too loud.
Oh, wow. That one's really specific to a library because every library space is different. So some library spaces, there is a place where teens could go. There is an option to like move computers elsewhere. But if there isn't, if you only have this specific space to deal with and everyone has to share it, it's really going to come down to the culture there at the library. Who is this group of teens? Is it the same group of teens every week? Is it a varying group of teens? Is this something that you can talk to the school about? Is this something, what is your relationship with the teens? Do the parents come in? Do families come in? All of that context gives you tools to understand what all of your options are, if that makes sense.
I've also found too that in that situation, I've encountered it when I was working in a public library, that letting that patron know, hey, these are the times of day when it is really loud and busy, you might want to avoid those if you can.
Really good point. And Sarah Pate says one possible noise solution, one-on-one classes the hour before the library opens by appointment. Nice. Adrian says we're doing a monthly program for patrons to try using North Star Digital Literacy. We have a mobile bank of laptops that they can borrow for the session and can work at their own pace with staff support. That's awesome. So it's like a North Star lab. That's cool, Adrian. And yes, just another plug for North Star. It's available in every library. If it's not available in your library, hit me up. We'll make it available in your library. If you want your community-based organization partners to have access to it, we have an account for them. Use what you want and leave the rest. You don't have to do everything, since North Star has a ton.
Right. I'm going to take over driving here as we wrap up. First of all, huge gratitude to Joyce for sharing her knowledge with us this morning. She did put her email on that last slide, but I took over, so maybe she'll pop it in chat for you. Once again, this session will be recorded and the recording will be available on the Washington State Library Niche Academy. I will be sending out an email to everyone who registered once that recording is available. Please remember to take that a few moments to respond to the short evaluation survey when you receive it. I think it'll come to you in about 2 hours, and we appreciate you taking the time to share your feedback. If you have any questions, please don't hesitate to reach out. My email is on the slide, and I think Sarah's going to pop it into chat for me as well. And thanks again to Joyce, and I really appreciate seeing you all this morning. Again, don't hesitate to reach out, and have a wonderful rest of your day, everyone.